Great. Now it's working.
Gotta love technology, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm excited to be here with you guys talking some offensive line play. Um, my name is Mark Brown. I'm the associate head coach, offensive coordinator, and offensive line coach at North Central High School here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Today, we're just going to be talking about offensive line pass protection and give you guys a couple drills here and there to hopefully give you guys some ideas on some things to do and give you guys some scheme stuff here as well. Because every time I go to a clinic, I like to get a little bit of a taste of what do coaches do as far as how they practice, and then how does it fit into the game. And then I'll show you guys through our some film that we have. One of our tournament games that we had here a couple years ago, when I had a pretty stout offensive line, where you can see some of the positives and negatives with it, and just kind of go through and give you guys some good information. At the bottom of my screen here is my email. That's my personal email, and also my Twitter handle at Coach Mark Brown _Mark Brown. That is a great way for everybody to get a hold of me. Twitter is probably the easiest way because it comes right directly to me. And I've already started sharing some stuff today. Some coaches. I'm an open book. I've been raised in the fact that we need to share and grow the game as much as we can. And if there's anything I can do to help, I'm always more than willing to help out for anybody, anytime. And if my philosophy fits yours, great. If it doesn't, I think it's just great to learn a bunch of different ways to do things. So just a little bit more about me. Like I said, I'm the associate head coach, offensive coordinator at North Central High School. I've been here since 2017 to our current present time. Before that, I was the head coach at Carroll Junior Senior High School, which is a school of about 450 kids in a small town called Flora, Indiana. And I was the head coach there from 2014 to 2017. I was lucky enough to lead them to an undefeated season my last year and help build a good, solid program that has been one of the better ones in our classification, which would be our 1A programs. And they range from about 500 students all the way down to about 250 students. So I got the opportunity to come to North Central, which is in the largest classification, 6A, which has between 5,000 to 3,200 students in each of our schools. Before that, I was the assistant offensive line coach and defensive line coach at Central Catholic High School in Lafayette, Indiana, from 2008 to 2014. It was my first job coming out of college. Learned from a great coach, Kevin O'Shea, who's my current head coach now at North Central High School. He asked me to come along with him to help turn around our fledgling program and help take us to the next level. And we've been able to do some great things. We won our first sectional championship in 25 years, 2 years ago. And then this past year, we won our first conference championship in school history in football. And before that, I was a player and a graduate assistant at Earlham College in Richmond, Indiana, from 2007 to 2008, and also served as their video coordinator. So I've got a little bit of love for just the study of the game, just to watch football and break it down. So who are we at North Central, and who are we as far as our philosophy is concerned? Our offensive philosophy, is deeply rooted in our run and shoot and the air raid systems. I learned the air raid from Jerry Kiesling and Tom Dunham, my former head coach and offensive coordinator at Earlham. During my senior year, we were ranked 14th out of 239 Division III schools. My head coach, who I currently work for, is Kevin O'Shea, as I said earlier. I learned this offense of the run and shoot through him, and we've adapted and adjusted parts of our offense in the last 12 years that we've been working together, and our core offense is the same. So what is our ultimate goal? We want to get the ball to our athletes in the open field and distribute the ball all over the field to any one of them at any time. We can create space in the run game, we believe, by getting the ball into the open field and spreading out the defense. And then we want to be able to make sure or take what the defense gives us. So if they're giving us 5 men in the box, we want to be able to run the ball and do so at any time. If they're going to give us the open field, we want to take care of that and do that so at any time. So whatever it is we need to do, we want to be able to take it. And it doesn't really matter if we want to throw or pass. We want to do what's best for us to take advantage of what they're giving us. And we feel that we need, in order to be an elite team, we have to be able to run and pass. And also goes into that is our screen game, but we're not going to get into that today. And we believe that we want high percentage passes. And our definition of a high percentage pass is in an unimpeded straight line from the quarterback or the receiver to the quarterback. So as far as offensive line play is concerned, what do we look for in different positions of our offensive line? First off, as I start off with our tackles, I want our most athletic offensive linemen to be on the outside because we want to be able to not lock up one-on-one with the defensive lineman or the defensive end in space. Those guys normally are on an island and have to be one-on-one majority of the time. Occasionally, we will send the running back out there to help them, but it's just based upon our pass protection. And what ends up happening for us is we want them to basically run the defensive ends upfield, stay in front of them, and try to widen them out to create a cup look that I'm going to talk about here in just a little bit. But those guys have to be our go-to guys on the offensive line. We want them to make sure that they are the stout guys as possible. I just saw here with one of our topics in the chat bar, 3-yard splits. Not 3-yard splits, we want 3-foot splits. So we want about a full yard in between our guys. Oh, I need to go back here. So with our guards, we are looking for more athletic, big linemen. In our pass protection, they are our adjusters. So if they will be the ones coming off and picking up in our blitz protection if they're uncovered, or if they are covered up, they are our main source of protection up the middle. And we want those guys to be able to move their feet and stay within and be able to hold a 300-pound nose tackle or nose tackle or D tackle in order to stop pressure from coming up the middle. For us, our center is our smartest lineman. If he's a great athlete and is a very good blocker, more like the guards, that's great, and that gives us a little more flexibility. But he needs to be able to set our protection and keep the pressure from coming up the middle in the same way. In our protection as well, he kind of fits in the mold of the guard, is he's going to be an adjuster in our against the even front, so that way he'll be the one to make the adjustments and come off and make the block. So what skills are needed to play offensive line for us? An offensive lineman must have a great base. Everything starts with a great base. We start from the ground and build up. His feet are the most important aspect of his body because everything starts there. And if he never crosses the midline of his body or click his heels, because it's like the pyramids. If the pyramids have stood for hundreds or thousands of years and have a wide base, I believe that our pass pro or our lineman stance in general has to be much like the pyramids. Okay, build from the ground up, being a wide base and moving up towards more towards a V or a inward tilt, so that way we never fall over. He works to get his cleats in the ground with proper technique. He must be able to run effectively for pull techniques and screens, and then he must be able to move and stay controlled in the open field. Strength, the offensive lineman must be able to sustain and finish blocks. Explosion is the key to creating successful blocks. And what we mean by that is I want our guys to be able to come off the ball and get from point A to point B as quickly as possible and get into the defensive lineman faster than what the defensive lineman can get into us. If we are able to do that, then we're able to knock them off the ball and get movement. In the same fashion, if we're able to beat them to the spot in our pass protection, then we're able to mirror dodge and keep them in front of us and keep a clean pocket. Strength is the key to sustaining blocks, and we want them to be strong, explosive athletes. Next, flexibility. An offensive lineman must be able to bend and move to get in proper position for excellent technique, and we must be able to get into proper stance. One of the things we need to be able to do is be a knee bender and not a waist bender. We want to be able to invert our back to produce proper angles on our pass protection and be able to create Z's in the knees and proper and ankles to support power producing angles. And I'll show you some pictures here and just a little bit of that. And with our hands, the offensive lineman must have great hand and eye coordination to shoot their hands effectively. Being able to control punch on pass protection with pinpoint accuracy. One of the things I talk to our guys about is that your eyes will lead your hands. So if your eyes go down, your hands are going to go down. If your eyes stay up and stay at a perfect angle to where you're going to punch, that's the best part. So we really focus on keeping our focus on one point on our defensive ends or defensive tackles shoulder pads, so that way we can hit them with proper accuracy. Being able to fire hands in proper placement on run blocking, we want a double uppercut and keep our arms in an L position. And then on pass protection, I call it sumo hands, or like a 1-2 punch, where we are using the leverage of the defensive lineman to kind of fan them out, where we'll punch one hand, so that way when they come with a counter move, then we're able to redirect with our second hand and push them down the line of scrimmage or widen them out from the line of scrimmage to create a nice cup look. And we must have great strength in our hands for success with our technique and execution. Intelligence, our linemen need to be some of the most intelligent players on the field. The ability to make the calls and understand the play recognition is a must. Needs to be able to know what the guys next to him are doing and have an understanding of what the offensive work within the team. We must be able to adapt and adjust on the fly during the pressures of the game, and that's what we try to do with our rules. And I'll go through and show you guys that here in just a little bit. Is our rules are pretty simple, but they are very effective, so that way our kids really know, once they really grasp the concepts, they really understand their adjustments on the fly. And sometimes it's just little minor tweaks here and there during mid-game adjustments that I have to make. And then we must be able to recognize fronts and blitzes and be able to translate that to games, practice, and then eventually understand why he is doing what he's doing and be effective doing it. And I would say one of the most important things here are relentless effort, grit, toughness, and attitude. A relentless drive to get better every day and an obsession to finish. Offensive linemen don't let up, and when they're feeling their opponent's weakening, they push harder and strive towards complete domination each and every snap. He must have an attitude that he is going to be physically manhandle opponents each and every play to get the job done. That's kind of our mentality with all of this. So in our stance, we get into a 2-point stance. We believe that we can run block and pass pro from a 2-point stance because we believe it is easier to see the movements of the defensive linemen and the linebackers. Our base footwork is shoulder width apart. Our toes are pointed in with heels slightly kicked out. This position will force a power through the inside of our knees to the balls of our feet. Our stagger in our stance will be toe to heel stagger, but never further. Power producing angles, the stagger of our feet up to the position to create power producing angles from our ankles to our knees. We call this the Z in the knee. And I'll show you guys this in a little bit in our pictures here too. This gets us in a great position, slightly rolled knee forward to the front of our foot, so that way it is over the toe. This places the weight on the balls of our feet and slightly off the ground. Our heels are slightly off the ground. Arms and hands should be placed on the forearm on the thigh, so that way it's ready to strike, and our hand on the thigh or having a 90-degree knee bend. Shoulders and back tail should be square to the line of scrimmage with a squatter's bend or arch in the back, and our tail should be pushed out to create a good Z position that we are looking for. And the initial movement will explode out of our stance with our position that will allow us to move forward and not upward. And we work on our drive catch movement. We will never tell our guys to block with their head. We tell them to lead with their hands. Our arm action on our initial step will strike the hands through our opponent with speed. and that's what we need, and that's what we want them to get their hands on them as soon as possible. All right, I got a question here. It says, what do you think about, for example, tackles pointing out their toes on a 45, and can you see that working on the college tapes? And 100% yes. We try to keep it kind of, we just kind of try to keep it uniform with our guys for them to work on their, be able to work on their pass, on their run block and pass pro. But 100% yes. I'm continue studying this. That's something I have looked at. I haven't quite grasped that yet for my teaching, so that's not how we coach it yet. But 100% yes, Coach. I 100% agree with you with the 45 degrees, with the 45 degree angle. So thank you. As you can kind of see here, what Coach was kind of talking about, this with each of these different guys here. These two guys right now are playing in the NFL, and this guy right here was actually a junior high student for me at one of my old schools. Do you see a lot of pauses in the 45 angle? Yeah, because what it allows you to do, Coach, is it allows you to keep all your cleats in the ground and it doesn't get you off balance. So I think that's very important to look at, because sometimes when you get on your tippy toes, it allows you to stand up and it doesn't allow you to get those proper power producing angles. So again, something I'm looking at and researching a little bit and playing with myself. So thank you. Kind of like what Coach said here. All right. A lot of this stuff is very similar with our center stance, okay? With our base being shoulder width apart, our feet, we want them parallel with no stagger, because eventually when we take our steps, we're going to have to lose a little bit of ground on our pass pro. So it allows us to kind of get in a kick set with our center going to that area. Our shoulders and back tail, again, need to be squared to the line of scrimmage with our back parallel to the ground when we're originally in our stance. We want our tail to be at least as high as the shoulder pads, but we'll keep our hips up to facilitate the snap. We don't want to rock our hips up, because that usually allows us to shoot the ball over the quarterback's head, and that's not a good thing. In our initial movement, we want to explode out of our stance or explode back in our stance with back parallel to the ground or chest up, so that way we're able to keep our foot near to and explode out of the block. The position of our ball, the ball should be placed slightly to our right eye if we're right-handed, or left to our left eye if we're left-handed. And forward or above your head. Extending the ball in front of you gets you a better cutoff angle, because the defender will not be as close to the rest of the linemen on the line of scrimmage. Our grip, what we work on, is what we call a dead snap, and we do so with where we hold the point of the ball in our palm and have the laces facing the throwing arm of our quarterback, so that way he can get the laces quicker. An effective snapping and stepping with proper foot should be a continuous movement. The shotgun snap is performed by shooting the ball back to the quarterback. This can be done one of two ways: by finding a follow-through point on through to your butt, or implementing a stopper on the thigh with your forearm. And so for us, the center is the leader of our offensive line, because they're in our system. They are the ones who make the calls for the protection, knowing our numbering system. And in order to do this, we have to have a clear understanding of the concepts and plays that we use. When making the calls, we make them loud and clear, make them as soon as possible, and don't be afraid to make false calls, because we want to mess the defensive lineman up as well. And we never make calls without seeing the alignment of the offense or the defense first. All right, got another question here. It's a discussion on our staff. Okay, I got a question here. Because our tackles turn their hips to the outside, so we try to have them point their toes a little bit more to the front. And I think that's a great thing to do sometimes. What I worry about, and I'm going to kind of get into this a little bit, is if I turn my toe out, then I might open up my shoulders too soon. And if I open my shoulders up too soon, that gives the defensive linemen, the defensive ends, an inside rush lane that we don't want to give up. And I'll kind of show you guys that on film here in a little bit. One of my kids does a really good job of keeping his shoulders square, and then the defensive end tries to cut underneath him back inside to the quarterback, and we're able to step inside and wash him down because we're able to have our shoulders more square. Does that make sense, Coach?
Yes, coach. That's great.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for all the questions. I appreciate it. I don't want to go off on a tangent or anything like that. And here's kind of some pictures of some of the some centers in college football. I kind of pull this stuff up to show my guys, looking at their proper power producing angles, look at the Z's in their knees, looking at where they have their hands in relationship to so that way they're ready to strike the defensive lineman when they're getting ready to come through. So when we evaluate our offensive linemen, what we look for is their footwork and technique. That's the first thing we look for. Did we use good footwork to get us in proper blocking position to make the play successful? And then next is our assignment. Did we block the play correctly? So based on the scheme, whether you're running a trap scheme, power scheme, counter scheme, zone scheme, whatever, we want to see, did we use a proper assignment to know our assignment and block it correctly? And then effort and finish. Did we stay engaged on the block the entire play? Or were we relentless to find work if we fell off our block to get back on the block? So those things that we look at, that we use to grade our guys, and really we are looking. I mean, among everything, finish and effort is paramount to everything else that we look for. A couple of everyday drills that we use are what we call the bull rush or the bull and pull drill, and this helps us to learn to stop the bull rush. Every defensive lineman that I've ever coached against or that I've ever coached, the main go-to rush is the bull rush. And we want to learn how to use proper technique and balance to work this. So what we want to do is we want to keep our inside foot. So what we talk about is if we're on the left side, we always want our left foot back. If we're on the right side, we always want our right foot back. So we want to keep our inside or our post foot forward and keep our outside foot or our kick foot back. So all the defender's going to do is go half speed and kind of push back. So that way we can learn when to drop our hips or how to drop our hips. And when they start to pull us forward, how to kind of lean back a little bit and not fall off balance. And this is just an everyday drill that we do. So that way we can learn so that way we feel when the defensive lineman will adjust and feel us pushing forward and then he tries to throw us, that we can sink our hips. And then when he's bowling us back, that we can sink our hips as well and keep our shoulders back so that way we can stop their penetration. The next thing is the spin drill. In this drill, what we'll do here, as you guys can kind of see on my drawing here, is we'll just kind of go back and forth with the defensive lineman, just kind of spinning down the road and then come back. And our offensive lineman will mirror them. And what they'll do with this is the defensive will go half speed, and to practice counter spinning, we'll just use, instead of shooting both hands, we'll kind of play patty cake with them with our hands to kind of keep them in front of us while we keep our shoulders square. We want to keep the defender within the framework of our body and not lean into the defender. When the defender throws the spin move on us, what I found is it's because they beat us when we lean forward. If we sit back and have proper pass pro posture in our pass pro position, then we're able to work our mirror dodge and stay in front of them. And then the last one here that we do, and we just do this either by ourselves lining up, or we can use a 5-man sled. It all depends on what you have. We call it the line drill. And this is to increase speed and power with our punch while maintaining proper body position. And all we really want to do is have our guys sit down and just work on a 2-hand strike. Okay, so the coach, I'll coach from the side of the sled or behind our guys back through in this area. Our goals are to have our hips low and our head back, our hands in proper position when we punch, and then after the punch, and then lock out after the punch. So we're just kind of going through here and quick striking our defensive linemen. So what we talk about in getting into our scheme here, okay? I've heard a great offensive line coach by the name of Howard Mudd. He was the former offensive line coach for the Indianapolis Colts under Tony Dungy, and he was the offensive line coach for Peyton Manning. And I've heard him give a talk a couple years ago at the Cool Clinic over in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he talks about creating the dish. And while I totally agree with him with what he does, that does not work for us at the high school level. So what we try to do is we try to create a cup. And I'm going to kind of go through and talk about this. But in our quick sets, we really just want to give our kids a quick set of one kick set or 2 steps back with their go like left right or right left to mirror dodge their defensive end, and we'll give them 2 in our deeper passes. And I'll kind of show you guys this here how it kind of works. So why the cup and not the dish? So when the guards get pushed back here in the cup, what can end up happening is they get pushed back here a little bit further than what they really want to. Like I'm giving you guys this picture of what the ideal look is. If they get pushed back, the quarterback might think he's getting pressured when he's really not. And that will allow him or make him think that he needs to break contain and get outside the pocket and make a play when he doesn't really need to. I had a quarterback a few years ago he was a sophomore, second-year player for us, and he was not comfortable sitting in the pocket. So what we had to do is we had to adjust this. So especially in point number two here is in our O-line, especially if our guards and center are not as strong of blockers, that will result in those guys getting pushed back. We've had, to my quarterback's credit that I was talking about here just a little bit ago, to his credit is he tried to stay in the pocket, but sometimes the center and guards would get pushed back into him. So just something to keep in mind. So this kind of gives you guys a vision of what we look at as our cup. So what we want to do here is for our guards, we want to keep the defensive tackles on the line of scrimmage to have a lot more room to adapt and adjust on the fly. And this allows our quarterback to adjust as well to get the ball out. Our tackles can then gain depth and width to keep the defensive ends away from the quarterback. And this allows our quarterback to have a cleaner pocket to step up into. If our center guard can keep everything up here, and we will actually send our fullback up in the middle sometimes to check inside out, we're able to pick some things up, and our tackles can run guys high. This gives us a lot more room here in the middle for a quarterback to stand in the pocket. Are there any questions anybody has so far?
Not yet, Coach.
All right, so our pass pro rules, how we work on them, how we work. Against the even and odd front for the tackles, we're always big on big. So if there's someone who walks up on the line of scrimmage and they want to blitz or anything like this for anybody ever, we're going to take them. Because for us, they're the most dangerous man. They're at the point of attack. They want to come after us. We're not going to slide protect. We're going to say, okay, based on our rules, you're my guy, and I'm going to block you. So for our tackles, while they have the more athletic players on defense to block, they actually have the easiest rule because no matter what, they're always going to be covered, and they're always going to check big on big. They've got whoever comes over top of them. For our guards, they're a little bit more difficult. In the even front, they're going to match up big on big because usually you've got a 3 technique or 2-eye. In some cases, you might have a 1 technique on the far inside shoulder that you might have to take. It just kind of depends. And the odd front for us, we have a rule that we call, say, man on outside or man on play side. Kind of depends on what we want to do with that. So we'll actually take a step back and get behind our center in our odd front and kind of we call it a plateau step. So we're trying to step behind them so that way we can see where if the blitzers are coming out. If they don't come back, then we can go back and help our center on his block, on his man-on-man block. The center, he always makes our right and left call for our protection based on our game plan. And then in the even front, he does the exact same thing that our guards do on the odd front. is he is man on play side. So he's always checking man on first and then working to the play side wherever he called to. And then the odd front, he's got the nose one-on-one until one of the guards comes off and is able to help him, or sometimes we'll even send the running back in there to help him if needed. We prefer to have him block one-on-one because that gives us a lot more freedom in our offense to do so. And then our running back, he will check the stack inside backer opposite of the play side, or opposite of the call side, I should say. Versus the 33 stack, the running back will then check the Mike backer first and then check coast to coast opposite of the call. Here's a couple diagrams of how it kind of ends up looking here. Against the 4-3, we've got big on big, big on big. Our center's going to check man on, which is our Mike, number 1, to outside of the Sam, number 2, if he's making his right call. And then guards big on big, tackles big on big, with our fullback or our running back checking the first backer outside to his away from the call side. So this kind of goes here and shows you guys a little bit here. Our S back, we have not used this. This is an old diagram that I've had. He's going to always be in our route. He's never going to be in our protection. Against the 4-4, as you guys can see here, if you're covered, you're big on big. If you're uncovered, you help to the side help to the side, the called side, inside out. So for our center in this case, we're making a right call. He's checking the stack backer, the Mike in this case, number 1, to plateau step outside to the Sam, number 2. And then our running back will check the first stack backer, which is right over here to his place, or right in front of him to his backside. Our will bet to the backside to our bandit is what we call that backside weak side backer. And then if nobody comes, he'll go through and check coast to coast. And what we mean by coast to coast is outside to outside. In the 3-4, again, covered, you're big on big. If you're uncovered, this is where it gets a little bit different. You're help man on inside out. So for our guards, they're the uncovered. They're checking the man on to outside. Man on to outside. Fullback will now check. There's no stack backer, so he's going to check coast to coast now. And that's kind of how it works for us in our pass pro against the 3-4. And then the 33 stack or 3-3 stack, we will actually take, it's the same rules for our guards. It doesn't change anything because there's no man outside. You'll check the next man outside to the next man outside. Next man outside to next man outside. And then our fullback will check the stack, which is the Mike, to coast to coast. Are there any questions I have so far?
No, coach.
Perfect. All right, so now I'm going to pull up some game film for you guys, so that way you guys can see our pass protection a little bit. And it's a little trick here.
Great. I've got 2 questions about the punch. Do you like to have them now or later?
No, absolutely. Go ahead, Coach.
On the first question is about how much do you explode and move your hips forward into the punch in pass protection? Well, we've got the problem that the kids the kids move their hips up a little bit too far and get pulled away from the defensive lineman.
What we teach them to do is we want to kind of be like a quick jab. So if you're a boxing person, we want to jab them and not throw the haymaker.
Mm-hmm.
We want it to be a quick strike to kind of stop their momentum with their hips. I actually kind of teach them to move their hips forward and kind of shoot their head back, so that way you don't end up lunging at them. It's more of that jab, because what I found is if you really try to go for that haymaker punch rather than moving your hips and everything, what ends up happening is you go through and end up getting off balance and then falling forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's great. And the second question is, from which point of your body do you shoot the hands? From your breast or from your ribs?
That's a great question. We like to shoot them from our ribs because we want to be more of that uppercut shot. I have done it from underneath my chin, and we like to keep our hands close together. And what we teach our kids, I'm glad you asked this question, is we like to teach them to kind of what we call roll the meatball. So if I'm making meatballs, I want to keep my hands nice and tight and keep them close together. So that way, if we need to, if I want to shoot two hands, if at all possible, move my hand, move in front of them. But sometimes I do get off angle and off leverage from the defensive lineman. So sometimes it's better for me to shoot one hand and get back and try to get on him quick. So that way, if he wants to make an inside move on me, I can then shoot my inside hand to him to cut him off. Or if he's trying to run around me, I'm able to shoot my inside hand and run him upfield by the quarterback.
Okay, that makes sense. I think we had, 2 years ago, the Charles Bentley here for a clinic in Germany, and I think some coaches mixed the techniques a little bit, and that's the reason why I asked that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Charles Bentley's a great one to listen to. I follow him on Twitter and listen to him all the time. Got a great much of admiration and respect for him and what he does. He's a much better. He's a aficionado of offensive line play. I will say that for sure.
Yeah, so great. They were my questions. So we can go on, Coach. Thank you very much.
Perfect. So again, this is a playoff game for us, and as you guys can see, this guy right here, our right tackle, is about 6'7", 6'8", and he's about 200 pounds. My other offensive tackle over here, my left tackle, ended up being a junior All-State kid, senior All-State kid, and All-MIC team for us 2 years in a row, which is we're one of the top conferences in the Midwest, and he ends up being a really good player for us. He's about 6 foot, about 200, I'll say 65 pounds. Great feet, rugby player, great athlete, and he's actually going to go play, center for the University of St. Francis, which is a perennial NAIA power here in Indiana. My two guards here are about 350 pounds and about 320 pounds at this point, and both these guys have real good feet. This kid right here, my left guard, actually has a leg injury and has a little bit of trouble moving. So you'll see him maybe hobble around a little bit, and I'll kind of coach you through the technique on him. And then my center here is about 200 pounds and does a really good job of playing with leverage in this game, and is a smart kid and always gets us in good position. So I'll kind of talk you guys through this as we go through. So as you can kind of see here with our pass pro, we got on our defensive ends, nose to nose, have good position. You can start to see 96 here to start to work an inside move with our running back stepping up here in the line of scrimmage to step up and help out our offensive lineman. And you can see him checking this inside backer here as well. What you see here is our tackle working back to make a move. We've actually worked to widen the hole. Our running back is actually fit into the void here as we're getting ready to throw this ball. Our quarterback's nice and calm, stays in the pocket, has the ability to step up and make a big play for us to our receiver downfield to score a touchdown. Our next pass play here looks like to be some of our quick protection. They work a little game up here on our right side. Our tackle and center and guard do a good job of coming off on that. Center does a really nice job of kind of trying to bury him, But what he doesn't do a good job of is keeping his feet moving and staying out of. He gets a little too involved with his upper body, as you guys can see here, with him leaning into 96. He ends up spinning out, and our best move is to turn and try to throw him down. While our guard, and that gives, again, our quarterback that false sense of pressure that he's going to be chased down instead of being able to step up in the pocket and make a throw. Our tackle on the other side, our left tackle, has done a nice job here of setting to shade, keeping his shoulders square. Our defensive end wants to make an inside move, so he just takes him and washes him down the line of scrimmage. Now, he doesn't stay on contact, and again, that works to our disadvantage for our quarterback. And same thing with our left guard here, as we get spin out, we don't stay nose to nose, and he ends up getting a free lane because we don't move our feet and stay in front. Now it feels like he's got a free lane, so our quarterback feels that we've got pressure from 1, 2, 3 guys when there's not really any, and then he's got to pull. He feels like he needs to pull down and sprint for as many yards as he can. Sorry about that. There we go. All right, go back here. All right, so a little quick protection for us here. On our right side, working another game with our twist. This time, our tackle does a nice job of passing him off. Our guard changes, sees the twist coming, is able to wash him down and pin him inside. Our tackle does a nice job of keeping 92 outside. Our left guard and center do a nice job on a double team combo with our with 95 here, able to keep their shoulders turned or shoulders square and eyeing up number 38 to see if he's going to blitz. And 72 does a nice job on the outside, keeping him there, while us being able to get the ball out real quick to number 6. Again, as you can see, our defense, or the way they're playing this is their nose is more on our center. So what our adjustment is for our guard to check on man on outside. If he doesn't have anybody coming from the outside, then he's able to step inside and help our center on this pass pro. So he'll actually end up checking to number 38 to work outside here, and our running back will check to number 43. Okay, get a good look here. Start on the left side. Number 72 gets a little involved here with the defensive end. 77 also gets a little involved, tries to overset to the inside to the defensive tackle. They work a good game here. It's a good job by 74 to come back across to get him taken care of. But we really need to be more stout with number 77. And that right there is a good point, is a case in point of when we back up too much, especially if this is being a quick game, our quarterback stepping and getting the ball out, that we give that undue pressure. Luckily for us, on the right side here, number 78 and number 69 do a good job of quick setting, keeping their guys on the line of scrimmage. 32 really needs to step up here in this void and help out, so that way he gets out of the quarterback's way. And luckily, we're able to get the ball out quickly and do some things. Coach, how are we doing on time?
Oh, Coach, we are doing good. We don't have any other clinics after your talk, so we can go.
Perfect. Perfect. I'll show about 5 or 6 more clips and we'll go from there.
That's great. But I have another question.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the last clip where you have the tech stunt between the 3-tech and the end, do you like to fan such a pick stunt, or do you like to see your offensive lineman play them big on big all the way through?
That's a great question. And for me, I think it's more difficult for you to play them big on big the whole time. It's easy. It just takes a lot of reps to fan it as well. So I mean, it's kind of what do you feel most comfortable with? I don't necessarily want to twist them so much. When they twist, I want to try to keep a wall in front of my quarterback, so that way, at least we stay shoulder to shoulder and work on passing them off. And that's about the only time we would change from our big on big. Does that make sense?
Yes, Coach, that makes sense.
Perfect. Again, another quick game. We know we don't have any linebackers here in the middle of the field. We've got number 38 out here and another linebacker. So our center is basically calling our protection to the right and knows it's basically going to end up being these 2 guys for these 2 guys with our pass pro is how we called it during this game here. As far as our adjustment is, 69 does a great job of pass setting. Gets a little involved there right there, as you guys can see, but his initial step is really good. And this is kind of what I was talking about here, is he does a good job with his second hand, maybe get it thrown a little bit, but his second hand is able to run him upfield even though he gets off balance. 78 and 74 do a good job on the DT. Would like him, both of these guys, to keep their shoulders square and get foot to foot, hip to hip, shoulder to shoulder, because this little gap right here concerns me. If he's able to dip and rip through, he's got a straight on shot to our quarterback. 77 starts off here initially doing a pretty good job on the defensive, on the nose, and is able to keep him out, and that's a really good position where we want him to be. And 72 does a nice job. Would really like him to not get his feet that close together, but he's a good enough athlete. He can overcompensate and do some things. Would really like him to step and keep this post foot forward to keep movement going down the line of scrimmage, which he ends up getting, but just being able to be more strong with that up foot to give our quarterback a better lane. Our quarterback has a lot of trust in those guys and is able to get the ball out. And here's a not good pass play where we actually give up a sack. So as you can see here, number 72 on the outside gets a little gets a little bull pull action, falls forward a little bit, and again, it's football. They coach their guys, we coach our guys, and sometimes they win, sometimes we win. We just hope we win more often than they do. And he ends up getting a good pull, good throw, good run around, and is able to get enough pressure on the outside. But let's look at how everybody else does here as well. We get a little game up here at the top, the tech stunt between the defensive end and tackle. We do a good job of passing that off and picking it up. Our guard and center do a good job on that. Again, it's kind of like what we kind of just talked about a little bit ago, is with our offensive line, they're a team amongst a team, and one guy falters, we make the play go. We take great pride in making sure that we keep everything going the way we need it to. Again, another not so good pass play. We've seen some really good ones. Now we're getting some not so good ones here, where our right tackle ends up giving up the sack here, it looks like, because he gets a little too high on his pass pro. As you can see, our leverage is not very good. He needs to sink his hips and have a better stagger to be able to keep his pass pro. He gets pulled and pulled a little bit, and he's able to get around him and get to our quarterback. And 93 is a really good football player. But one of the things we do pride ourselves on here in the next play is we have a mantra that we say next play. So whether things are going well, things are not going well, we need to make sure that we answer the bell the next play and play that play as hard as we possibly can and execute to the very best of our abilities. So going left to right here, our left tackle does a nice job. Good kick set. Now this is a great point. I think, Coach, you were talking about earlier about having our kick set out and having your tackles kind of do this. This is a great thing. One of the things I tell our tackles to do is when he's kicking out, we want his butt to actually be like it has a GoPro on the small of his back, and it's taking pictures of the quarterback. I don't want him to turn so fast that it takes the focus off the quarterback. So what that does is it kind of gradually turns his shoulders instead of ultimately on the line of scrimmage turning your shoulders, because then it's hard for them to redirect back when the defensive end cuts across your face. And we never want him to cut across our face. So Jared, number 72, does a really good job on this, keeping him outside. 72 and 74 do a nice job on checking 1 to 2 here, keeping that nose tackle out. 78 does a nice job here of keeping his defensive tackle on the line of scrimmage. And 69 does a good job of creating that cup and running him high, even though he gets thrown a little bit at the end. And our running back does a nice job of seeing him and helping clean up the mess, giving our quarterback a nice pocket to step up into and deliver the ball for a touchdown. All right, got a question here on our chat. Oh, I already had that one. Okay, cool. Yes. So, Coach, is there any other questions that you have? Any question from any of either you or any of the other coaches?
No, I don't think from the top of my head there are not. Okay. There are not any questions. We don't have any questions in the chat. Yeah, but I think you're really close to one of my offensive line coaches, from your technical approach, from your philosophical approach, and I really liked how you put everything together. I think we can get a lot of details and out of your talk, and yeah, it was great that we could ask all the questions to you. So yeah, thank you very much, Coach.
Yeah, Coach, I appreciate it. I appreciate all you guys being on here. If there's any questions here, let me pull this up here. That didn't mean to stop the share. If anybody ever needs to get a hold of me, you guys can reach me at my personal email, or it's actually easier on my Twitter feed at Coach_Mark Brown.
Yeah, great, Coach. So thank you very much for taking the time to help us get better. And we definitely dig deep into the offensive line pass protection today. And I think we will get a lot out of this. And you helped us to grow the game over here. So thank you very much, Coach.
No problem. Very happy to do so.
Yeah, Coach. I wish you all the best, and hope that there will be a season in the fall. So let's have the fingers crossed that you can play. And yeah, thank you very much, and have a nice day, Coach.
Absolutely. You guys too. Best of luck to you guys as well.
Thank you very much, Coach. Goodbye.
Bye.